She signed the prenup. Marcus Wellington's voice carried through the hotel room door. "We're golden, boys." Zara Okonkwo's hand froze on the champagne bottle she'd been carrying. Her fiancé's bachelor party was supposed to be over. She'd come to surprise him before their wedding tomorrow. "You actually convinced her." That was Brandon, Marcus's college roommate. The corporate lawyer with the six-figure salary signed away her rights. Laughter exploded from inside the suite. Cruel, mocking laughter. "Please," Marcus continued. "I told her it was standard for high-net-worth marriages. She ate it up. The prenup gives her nothing if we divorce in the first year. After the wedding, I give it 6 months, maybe a year if the sex is good, then I'm out. Free and clear." Zara's world tilted. "What about her firm?" another voice asked. "She's connected." "That's why I'm marrying her, genius. Her connections get me the clients I need to launch my hedge fund. Once I've got them, I don't need her anymore." The champagne bottle slipped from Zara's fingers, hitting the carpet with a muffled thud. 2 years, 24 months of late-night conversations, of meeting each other's families, of planning a future together. All of it calculated, all of it fake. Before this story of betrayal spirals into something you won't believe, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Hit that like button because this journey is just getting started. Trust me, you'll want to see where this goes. Now let's continue. Zara stumbled backward, her heels catching on the thick carpet. She couldn't breathe. The hallway of the Plaza Hotel stretched endlessly before her, the gold-framed mirrors reflecting a woman she barely recognized. Her carefully styled hair, her designer dress, her bright smile, all of it felt like a costume now. She should confront him, walk through that door and throw the champagne in his face. Scream, rage, demand answers. Instead, she ran. The elevator took forever. When the doors finally opened, she practically fell inside, jabbing the button for her floor. 38, the executive level where the wedding party had reserved rooms. A waiter passed by carrying a tray of champagne flutes. Without thinking, Zara grabbed 2 and downed them quickly. The bubbles burned, but she didn't care. She needed something, anything to dull the knife twisting in her chest. Her room. She needed to get to her room, lock the door, figure out what to do. The hallway swam slightly. Strange. She did wine at dinner, but 2 glasses of champagne shouldn't hit this hard. The numbers on the doors blurred together. 3805, 3815. Her key card trembled as she swiped it against a door. Green light. She pushed inside. The curtains were open, Manhattan glittering through floor-to-ceiling windows like a carpet of stars. Zara kicked off her heels and sank onto the bed, tears finally breaking free. "Who the hell are you?" Zara's heart stopped. A figure emerged from the shadows near the window. Tall, broad-shouldered. The city lights illuminated sharp features and dark eyes that assessed her with cold precision. He was striking in a way that made her breath catch. Dark hair, strong jawline, and an intensity that filled the room like smoke. "Wrong room," Zara managed, trying to stand. The room spun violently. "I'm sorry, I—" Her legs gave out. Strong hands caught her before she hit the floor. "You've been drugged," the stranger said, his accent placing him as East Coast educated but with something else underneath. Dilated pupils, unsteady breathing. "I'm fine," she slurred, even as she sagged against him. He smelled like cedar and expensive cologne. "I just need to Marcus, he—" The tears came harder. She was crying against a stranger's chest in a hotel room that wasn't hers, drugged and heartbroken and completely unraveling. "He said I was just business," she whispered. 2 years, just business." The stranger's arms remained steady around her, saying nothing as she cried against what she dimly recognized as a very expensive shirt. "I'm supposed to marry him tomorrow," Zara continued, the words tumbling out. "But he only wants my connections. Once he gets what he needs, he's leaving. The prenup ensures I get nothing." "Then don't marry him." Zara pulled back slightly, trying to focus on his face. Mixed heritage, black and something else. His dark eyes held an intensity that should have frightened her but somehow didn't. "It's not that simple," she said. The wedding, everyone's here. My parents, his parents, everything's paid for. Do you always make decisions based on what others expect? The question cut through her haze. She studied him. Strong features, expensive watch. The kind of presence that suggested he was used to getting what he wanted. Who are you? She whispered. Someone who believes life's too short to waste on people who don't deserve you. She should leave. Every rational thought screamed at her to leave. But the drugs were pulling her under and his arms were steady, and Marcus's words kept echoing in her head like a death sentence. Just business, she repeated. That's all I was to him. You're more than that. His voice was certain, final, and suddenly Zara was exhausted. Exhausted from being the good girl, from following the rules, from being perfect. She'd saved herself for marriage because Marcus said it mattered to him. She'd restructured her career around his needs. She'd ignored every red flag because she'd believed in them. She looked up at the stranger. Make me forget, she breathed, just for tonight. You don't know what you're asking. I'm asking you to help me stop being the woman who wasn't enough. For a long moment, he studied her. Something flickered in those dark eyes. You'll regret this tomorrow. I already have regrets, Zara whispered. What's one more? She kissed him, and the stranger kissed her back. Morning light cut through the windows like an accusation. Zara opened her eyes, and for one blessed second, she didn't remember. Then everything crashed down. She sat up fast, clutching the sheets. The bed beside her was empty but still warm. The sound of running water came from the bathroom. Her dress lay crumpled near the closet, her jewelry scattered across the nightstand. Her mind struggled to piece together fragments, hands on her skin, whispered words, pleasure that had made her forget everything. What had she done? The bathroom door opened. Steam billowed out and the stranger emerged, water droplets rolling down a torso covered in tattoos. Intricate designs wound around his arms and chest. Dragons, geometric patterns, symbols she didn't recognize. This was not some businessman on a corporate trip. He wrapped a towel around his waist and looked at her with those penetrating eyes. Good morning, Zara. She grabbed for her dress. How do you know my name? He picked up her purse from the dresser and tossed it onto the bed. You dropped this when you stumbled in here last night. The keycard worked, she said defensively. I didn't break in. Interesting, isn't it? He pulled a shirt from the closet. How a key for room 3805 opened 3815. Zara's blood went cold. That's not possible. In my world, many impossible things happen regularly. He buttoned his shirt with practiced ease. The question is why someone would want us to meet. There is no us. She stood, holding the dress against her. This was a mistake. I was drugged, I was devastated, and I made a terrible decision. But this never happened. I'm getting married today. He went very still. When he turned, his expression had hardened into something that made her want to flee. You're still planning to marry Marcus Wellington, after what he said. The way he said Marcus's name, with such cold familiarity, made her stomach drop. How do you know my fiancé? He crossed the room and sat on the edge of the bed. Up close, she could see a thin scar along his jawline. Because Marcus Wellington is my half-brother. The world stopped. What? My name is Julian Cross. My mother was Simone Cross, a singer from Harlem. She had an affair with Harrison Wellington, Marcus's father, 31 years ago when she was performing at his club. When she got pregnant, Harrison paid her to disappear. He went back to his society wife and legitimate family. His voice held no emotion, pure fact. I was raised by my mother and her parents until I was 16. Then I went into business for myself. What kind of business? Zara asked, though she already suspected the answer. Julian's smile didn't reach his eyes. The kind that makes the Wellington family very nervous. The kind that's made Harrison Wellington lose considerable sleep since I returned to New York 2 years ago. You're a criminal. I prefer strategic entrepreneur. You're involved in organized crime. He shrugged like she'd commented on the weather. I have interests in real estate, entertainment, private security. I also facilitate solutions to problems the traditional system can't solve. Zara grabbed her dress and stood. I need to leave. To marry the man who called you business. His words stopped her cold. I heard everything last night, Julian continued. About Marcus, about the prenup, about how he plans to use your connections and discard you within a year. You don't know anything about me. I know you're a senior partner track attorney at Morrison Hayes. I know you graduated summa cum laude from Georgetown Law. I know you've never lost a case. And I know you're far too intelligent to chain yourself to a man who sees you as a stepping stone. Zara's heart hammered. How do you know all that? I've been monitoring the Wellington family for years. That includes knowing who they're connected to. He paused. What I didn't expect was to find his fiancé in my bed. This was a mistake. Was it? Julian moved closer. Or was it fate intervening before you made a terrible decision? I don't believe in fate. Neither do I believe in opportunities. He reached out and brushed a strand of hair from her face. The gesture was surprisingly gentle. Marry me instead. Zara laughed, sharp and disbelieving. You're insane. Possibly, but consider your options. You can go downstairs, put on your dress, and marry a man who views you as a business asset. You'll spend the next year as his tool before he discards you with nothing, thanks to the prenup you signed. He stepped closer. Or you marry me. You get your revenge on Marcus. You walk into that ceremony on my arm and watch his face when he realizes his plan has backfired spectacularly. The image was tempting, terrifyingly tempting. Why would you want to marry me? You're intelligent, accomplished, and you have a fire in you that my brother is too foolish to recognize. His expression darkened. And marrying you would hurt him in ways that money never could. It would prove that everything he thinks he owns can be taken. So I'd just be a weapon in your revenge. No, Julian's voice softened unexpectedly. You'd be my wife, my partner. I would never lie to you, Zara. Never use you like a business transaction. In return, I'd give you everything my brother never could. Respect, honesty, and the power to destroy anyone who tries to hurt you again. Zara's mind raced. This was insane. She couldn't marry a man she'd just met. A criminal, Marcus's secret half-brother. But then she thought about walking down that aisle. Thought about smiling at Marcus while he calculated her worth. Thought about being discarded like trash once he'd extracted what he needed. The anger that flooded through her was clarifying. If I agree, she said slowly, I have conditions. Julian's eyebrow arched. I'm listening. First, complete honesty. If you're doing something illegal, you tell me. If there's danger, you tell me. I won't be kept in the dark. Agreed. Second, this is a partnership. I continue my career. I maintain my independence. I'm not some trophy wife. I wouldn't want you any other way. Third, she hesitated. Last night doesn't mean I'm agreeing to anything physical. I was drugged. I wasn't in my right mind. Intimacy happens on your terms, Julian finished. You have my word. Zara studied him. Every instinct said this was dangerous, that she was making an impulsive decision driven by anger. But another part of her wanted to watch Marcus's world burn. How fast can you arrange a marriage? Julian smiled, and it transformed his face completely. I know a judge who owes me a favor. We can be married within the hour. Then let's do it. Let's crash my own wedding. The grand ballroom at the plaza had been transformed into something out of a fairy tale. White roses everywhere. Crystal chandeliers, ice sculptures. 300 guests filled the gilded chairs. At the altar, Marcus Wellington stood in his custom tuxedo, radiating confidence. His groomsmen flanked him, including Brandon and the others who'd been laughing about the prenup last night. Marcus's father, Harrison Wellington, sat in the front row with his wife. Both looked like old money personified. The string quartet began the wedding march. The doors opened. Everyone turned to see the bride. Instead of white, Zara walked in wearing a crimson Valentino gown that fit like armor. Her hair was swept up, her makeup dramatic, and on her arm was Julian Cross in a black suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. He moved like a predator, graceful and absolutely certain. The music stuttered to a stop. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Marcus's face went from confusion to recognition to absolute horror. "Julian," his voice cracked. "Hello, little brother." Julian's voice carried easily through the stunned silence. "There's been a change of plans." "What the hell is this?" Marcus stepped forward. "Zara, what are you doing?" Zara released Julian's arm and walked toward the altar alone, every step deliberate, every click of her heels echoing like gunshots. She stopped directly in front of Marcus. "Just business," she said softly, but the acoustics carried her words everywhere. "That's what I was to you, 2 years of just business." Murmurs erupted. She saw Brandon go pale. "Baby, I don't know what he told you," Marcus stammered. "But he's lying. He's trying to." "The prenup gives her nothing if we divorce in the first year," Zara quoted. "After the wedding, I give it 6 months, maybe a year, then I'm out, free and clear." Marcus's face crumbled. "You heard that?" "Every word." The murmurs became shouts. Zara's mother stood, fury on her face. Her father looked devastated. "You know what's funny?" Zara continued, addressing the crowd now. "I spent 2 years building my life around someone who saw me as a stepping stone, someone who laughed with his friends about how he'd fooled me." She laughed, cold and sharp. "But the joke's on you, Marcus. Because while you were planning your exit strategy, I found someone who actually sees my worth." She held up her left hand. The engagement ring was gone. In its place was a new ring, an emerald-cut sapphire surrounded by diamonds, set in platinum. "I got married this morning," Zara announced, "to your brother." The ballroom erupted. Marcus lunged forward, but Julian was faster. He caught Marcus's arm mid-swing with casual ease. "Careful, little brother." Julian's voice was soft, but carried an edge that made several guests step back. "That's my wife you're threatening." "Your wife," Marcus spat. "You don't even know her, you just wanted to get back at me, at Dad." "I wanted to take everything you took for granted," Julian replied calmly. "But Zara isn't anyone's pawn. She made her choice. She chose me." Harrison Wellington pushed through the crowd, his face purple. I told you to stay away from my family." "You told me nothing that mattered," Julian cut him off. "You paid off my mother and pretended I didn't exist for 30 years. Well, I exist now. And so does my claim to everything you built on the back of my mother's silence." "You have no claim." "Don't I?" Julian's smile was cold. "We can discuss my mother's signed contract, the one your lawyers claimed was invalid, in front of all these witnesses if you'd like. Or we can discuss how Wellington Capital has been misappropriating client funds for the past 3 years. Harrison went pale. "But that's a conversation for later." Julian turned to Zara and offered his arm. "My wife and I have a reception to attend." Zara took his arm, ignoring Marcus's protests and her mother's confused tears. She'd explain everything later. Right now, she was too high on vindication. As they walked down the aisle, she caught Brandon trying to slip out a side door. "Oh, Brandon," she called sweetly. He froze. "I know you were part of this plan. I know exactly how you counseled Marcus on the prenup," she smiled. "My firm represents several of your clients, past tense. They'll be receiving calls about your ethics violations Monday morning." Brandon's face went gray. Julian leaned down to whisper, "Remind me never to cross you." "Keep your promises," she whispered back, "and you won't have to worry." "Okay, I need to pause here because this story is just heating up. If you're enjoying this revenge tale, hit that like button right now and comment Queen down below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Make sure that notification bell is on so you never miss our stories. Now let's continue. The penthouse occupied the top 2 floors of a building in Tribeca. Floor to ceiling, windows offered views of the Hudson River and downtown Manhattan. "This is where you live?" Zara asked, taking in the modern luxury surrounding her. "This is where we live," Julian corrected, "unless you decide otherwise." The penthouse was decorated in minimalist style. Clean lines, expensive art, a library that took up half of one floor. "There's a guest suite prepared," Julian said, leading her down a hallway. "As promised, nothing happens without your consent." The guest suite was larger than her entire apartment. A king bed faced the windows, and through an open door she could see a marble bathroom with a tub that could fit 4 people. "I need to call my family," Zara said. "My mother is probably losing her mind." "Of course." Julian paused at the door. "I have business to attend to, but I'll be in my office if you need anything." "Business," she turned. "What kind?" He met her gaze steadily. "A shipment arrived this morning. Nothing that involves you directly, but if you want details." "Is it drugs?" "No, I don't deal in substances. It's electronics. High-end components that may have bypassed certain import regulations." "So smuggling." "Creative logistics." A ghost of a smile. "I never promised to be a saint, Zara." She didn't know what to feel about that. Part of her wanted to run, but he was giving her what she demanded, honesty. "Who drugged me last night?" Julian's expression darkened. "Still investigating. Initial reports suggest it was intended for a different guest. Someone targeting a celebrity staying on the same floor. Wrong glass, wrong victim." "So it really was random." "The drugging was random. You entering my room." He tilted his head. "My security team can't explain how your key card opened my door. It shouldn't have been possible." "You think someone arranged this?" "I think nothing in my world happens by accident." He studied her. "Rest. We'll talk more tomorrow." After he left, Zara sat on the bed and stared at her phone. She should call her mother, her father, her best friend Imani. Instead, she found herself calling Imani first. "Girl, what the hell?" Imani's voice exploded through the speaker. "The group chat is on fire. You showed up to your wedding in red with some fine-ass man and announced you married his brother." It took 30 minutes to explain everything. The overheard conversation, the drugged champagne, waking up in Julian's room, discovering he was Marcus's secret half-brother and ran a criminal organization. When she finished, there was a long silence. "Imani, I'm trying to decide if this is the craziest or most brilliant thing you've ever done," Imani said slowly. "Like, on one hand, you married a literal criminal for revenge. On the other hand, you absolutely destroyed Marcus in front of 300 people." "I don't know what I'm doing," Zara admitted. "I was so angry, so hurt, and he offered me a way to make Marcus pay." "Look, Z, I've known you since undergrad. You don't do impulsive. If you did this, you had a reason beyond just anger." "The reason was rage." "Nah, the reason was that your subconscious knew Marcus was wrong for you." Imani paused. "Remember how I always said he gave me weird energy?" Zara did remember. She dismissed it. "So what now?" Imani asked. "I figure out if Julian is who he says he is, if he keeps his promises, and if he doesn't." Zara looked at the Manhattan skyline. "Then I'll deal with that when it comes. Just be careful, and text me every day so I know you're alive." "I will." The call with her mother was significantly less supportive. It took an hour, and her mother's rage at Marcus's betrayal to finally calm the situation. By the end, her mother had moved from fury at Zara to fury at the Wellington family. "That boy," her mother said, voice low and deadly. "I will call every auntie from here to Atlanta. By the time I'm finished, Marcus Wellington won't be able to show his face anywhere." Despite everything, Zara smiled. The next few weeks passed in a blur. Zara returned to work at Morrison Hayes, where she was immediately called into the managing partner's office. "So," Patricia Morrison said, leaning back in her chair, "you got married." "I did," to Julian Cross. Patricia studied her for a long moment. She was 68, had been practicing law for 4 decades, and had connections to every power player in New York. "You know, we've been trying to get Cross Enterprises legal business for years," Patricia said finally. "They use a boutique firm for legitimate work, but rumor is they're expanding." Zara blinked. "I didn't know that." "Well, now you do," Patricia smiled. "I don't care what happened with the Wellington boy. What I care about is results. If your marriage can bring cross-enterprises to this firm, we should talk about an accelerated partnership track. I won't leverage my personal life. Everyone leverages their personal life. That's how the world works. Patricia waved a hand. Think about it, and congratulations. That evening, Zara told Julian about the conversation. Patricia wants your business, she said. Julian looked amused. She's not wrong that we're expanding. Our current firm is competent but limited. I'm not going to. I know you won't use our marriage for professional gain, he interrupted. But what if you earned it? What do you mean? We have a situation, a development project being blocked by a community board. Completely legitimate business, but someone on the board is being difficult. His eyes glinted. If you could resolve it through legal channels, the firm that handles it would earn my business. You want me to prove myself. I want you to do what you do best. Handle the legitimate work. The rest stays separate. It was a test. She recognized that, but it was also an opportunity. Send me the files, she said. The community board situation was more complex than expected. The difficult member was a woman named Carol Chen, a longtime resident with legitimate concerns about gentrification. Rather than intimidate or pressure, as she suspected Julian's usual associates might, Zara did her research. She discovered Carol's background in affordable housing advocacy and restructured Julian's proposal to include genuine community benefits. When she presented the revised plan at the community board meeting, Carol was impressed. This is actually reasonable, Carol said. Why didn't your client's people present this months ago? Sometimes it takes fresh eyes, Zara replied with a diplomatic smile. The project was approved unanimously. That night, Julian found her in the library. You impressed me today, he said, settling into the chair across from her. I did my job. You did more than that. You found a solution that benefited everyone. My people wanted to pressure Carol into compliance. You made her an ally instead. Zara set down her book. Is that how you usually operate, pressure? When necessary. His gaze was steady. But I've always preferred negotiation. Force is expensive. The best deals are ones where everyone wins. That sounds almost ethical. Don't mistake me for a good man, Zara. I've done things that would horrify you, but I believe in efficiency. And ethics, when they're practical, are very efficient. It was a strange philosophy, pragmatic morality, but it made a certain sense. Tell me about your mother, she said suddenly. Julian's expression flickered. Why? Because I'm trying to understand you, and I think everything starts with her. He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. Her name was Simone. She was a jazz singer in Harlem, incredible voice. Harrison Wellington heard her perform at his club. He was young, from old money, slumming in Harlem for entertainment. A bitter smile crossed his face. She thought he loved her. He probably thought he did too, until she got pregnant. He left her with money and empty promises. Julian's jaw tightened. My mother spent her life waiting for him. She worked herself to exhaustion trying to give me opportunities. And all the while, she held on to this fantasy that he'd come back, that he'd acknowledge me. Did he ever? Once, when I was 16, he showed up at her funeral with a check and a request that I never contact his real family. Julian's eyes went cold. I took the check, used it to start my business, but I never forgot. And now you want revenge. I want acknowledgement. I want him to look at me and see everything he threw away. I want Marcus to know his bastard brother built an empire while he was playing games. He paused, but marrying you was never just about revenge. Then what was it about? Opportunity, fate maybe. His gaze met hers. When you walked into my room that night, heartbroken and furious and beautiful, I saw something in you. Fire. You weren't content to be a victim. You wanted to fight back. So you offered me a weapon. I offered you a partnership. He leaned forward. And I'm starting to think it might be the best decision I ever made. Something shifted between them, a tension that had been building for weeks. Julian, I know your terms. I won't push. He stood and moved toward the door. Just know that when you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'm here. He left her alone with her thoughts, and the growing realization that this marriage of convenience was becoming something more complicated. 3 months into the marriage, Zara's life had transformed. She made senior partner at Morrison Hayes, the youngest in the firm's history. Cross Enterprises' business had brought in millions. Her reputation had soared. She'd also become part of New York's business elite. Galas, charity events, power dinners. Julian's world was surprisingly social, and Zara had become someone he was proud to show off. But the Wellington family hadn't accepted defeat quietly. Marcus had launched a media campaign, painting himself as the victim, a man abandoned at the altar by a scheming woman who'd run off with his wealthy brother. Harrison Wellington had used his connections to attack Cross Enterprises. Investigations, denied permits, political pressure. Julian countered every move with precision. Documents appeared exposing Harrison's financial improprieties. Witnesses came forward about Wellington Capital's misappropriation of funds. By the time the dust settled, Harrison Wellington was facing federal charges, and Marcus had fled to London to escape the media storm. But the real surprise came from an unexpected source. Mrs. Cross, the voice on the phone was female, elderly, and vaguely familiar. "This is Ellen Wellington, Harrison's wife." Zara's grip tightened. "What do you want?" "To apologize, and to tell you the truth." They met at a coffee shop on the Upper East Side. Ellen Wellington looked 10 years older than at the wedding. Her makeup couldn't hide the exhaustion in her eyes. "I knew about Marcus's plan," Ellen said quietly. "He told me about the prenup, about using your connections. I should have stopped him, should have warned you. But you didn't. I told myself it was just talk, that he'd fall in love with you and it wouldn't matter." Tears streamed down Ellen's face. "I was wrong, and I'm so sorry." "Why are you telling me this now?" Ellen pulled an envelope from her purse. "Because Marcus is planning something. I found these in his apartment in London. He's building some kind of case against you and Julian." Zara opened the envelope. Inside were surveillance photos, financial records, phone logs, witness statements. "He's trying to destroy you," Ellen said. "The way he feels you destroyed him." "I didn't destroy him. He destroyed himself." "I know, but Marcus has never been good at accepting responsibility." Ellen reached across the table. "I'm giving you this because I can't let my son ruin another woman's life. You deserve better." Zara studied the older woman. "Why should I trust you?" "You shouldn't, but I've spent 30 years protecting a family that wasn't worth protecting. Maybe it's time I did something right." After Ellen left, Zara called Julian. "We have a problem." Julian returned with his security team. He studied the documents, his expression growing darker. "This is a hit piece," he said finally. "Marcus is planning accusations against Cross Enterprises, money laundering, racketeering, extortion." "Can he prove any of it?" "Some of it, enough to trigger investigations." Julian's jaw tightened. "But look at these witness statements." Zara scanned them more closely. Her stomach dropped. The statements were about her. Accusations that she'd used insider information to help Julian's business. Claims of accepting bribes. Fabricated evidence of corruption. "He's trying to destroy my career," she breathed. "He's trying to destroy both of us." Julian set down the papers. "If these accusations go public, you'll be disbarred and I'll be tied up in legal battles for years." "What do we do?" Julian looked at her, and for the first time she saw vulnerability in his eyes. "I don't know. My usual methods won't work here. This is a legal battle." Zara's mind raced. She was a lawyer. This was what she did. "We get ahead of it," she said slowly. "We control the narrative." "How?" "We tell the truth, all of it." She stood and began packing. "Ellen Wellington will testify against her own son. We have evidence of Marcus's plan. The prenup. The overheard conversation. We prove he's been harassing me since the wedding." "What about my activities?" "How much is actually illegal?" "Technically, less than you'd think. We've been moving toward legitimate business. But there are gray areas. Gray areas can be explained. Gray areas can be justified. Zara's legal mind was firing. We restructure. Get ahead of potential charges with voluntary compliance. Hire a PR firm to reframe the narrative. Julian stared at her. You want to turn this into a David versus Goliath story. I want to tell the truth in a way that resonates. Harrison Wellington is a wealthy, politically connected man trying to destroy his illegitimate son and his black daughter-in-law. That's a story that writes itself. A slow smile spread across Julian's face. You're terrifying. I'm a lawyer, same thing. The counterattack launched 3 weeks later. Zara's firm held a press conference presenting evidence of Marcus's prenup scheme. Screenshots of conversations. Financial records showing payouts between Marcus and his groomsmen who'd wagered on the marriage. Testimony from Brandon, who'd cooperated in exchange for reduced charges in an unrelated fraud case. Ellen Wellington gave a tearful interview describing her shame at her son's behavior and her husband's decades of abandonment. Julian sat down with a major news outlet, presenting a carefully crafted narrative of an abandoned son who'd built a business empire through hard work. Public opinion turned fast. Marcus Wellington became a cautionary tale. His accusations fell apart under scrutiny. Witnesses recanted. Evidence was exposed as fabricated. By the time it ended, the Wellington family was ruined. Harrison faced federal charges. Their businesses were under investigation. Marcus remained in exile in Europe. And Zara and Julian stood at the top, victorious. 6 months after the scandal, Zara stood on the penthouse terrace, watching the sunset paint Manhattan in gold and pink. You've been quiet tonight, Julian said, appearing beside her with 2 glasses of wine. Just thinking about us, about what this is. Julian was quiet for a moment. What do you want it to be? Fair question. For 6 months, they'd lived together, worked together, fought together. They'd built something real, trust, respect, partnership. But they'd never addressed the attraction, the way his touch lingered, the way she watched him when he wasn't looking. I don't know, she admitted. When I agreed to this, I was angry. I wanted revenge. I wanted to prove my worth. And now, she finally looked at him. Now I've proven it. The revenge is complete. The Wellington family is destroyed, so why am I still here? Julian set down his glass and turned to face her fully. Because this stopped being about revenge a long time ago. Did it? For me, at least. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the same gesture from that first night. Zara, I've spent my entire life taking what I wanted without apology. I built an empire on calculation and ruthlessness. But with you, I want to be chosen. I want you to stay because you want to, not because of anger or obligation or convenience. That's not very mafia boss of you. I contain multitudes. A hint of humor surfaced, then faded. Tell me what you want. Whatever it is, I'll make it happen. If you want to leave, I'll have divorce papers drawn up by morning. If you want to stay, I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret it. Zara studied his face. The sharp lines softened by fatting light, the intensity in his eyes, the vulnerability he rarely showed. When I walked into your room that night, she said slowly, I was at my lowest point. I just discovered everything I believed was a lie. And you, a stranger, a criminal, a man I had no reason to trust, you offered me a way out. I offered you a partnership. You offered me power. She stepped closer. And now I have it. I have my career, my reputation, my self-respect. I don't need you anymore, Julian. His expression flickered with something like pain. But I want you. She reached up and traced the scar along his jaw. I want this life we've built. I want to wake up next to you. I want to face whatever comes next together. Not as business partners, not as revenge allies, but as husband and wife. For real this time. Julian's breath caught. Zara. I'm not saying I love you. Not yet. We're still figuring each other out. But I'm saying I want the chance to get there. She smiled, soft and genuine. So what do you say, want to start this marriage over? He kissed her. It was different from that first night. Not desperate and drugged, but deliberate and tender. A promise. A beginning. When they finally broke apart, Julian was smiling in a way that transformed his face completely. Not cold, not calculating, but genuinely happy. "I say yes," he murmured against her lips. 1,000 times yes. And for the first time since that night at the plaza, Zara felt completely at peace. She'd walked into the wrong room and found the right person. She'd sought revenge and found partnership. She'd been viewed as a transaction by one brother and become an equal to another. Life, she decided, was strange like that. 1 year later, Zara stood in the conference room at Morrison Hayes, presenting the final arguments for Cross Enterprises' largest real estate development project. Across the table sat representatives from the City Planning Commission, community advocates, and her opposing counsel. "The revised proposal," she concluded, "creates 300 units of affordable housing, preserves the historic theater, and funds a community center. This isn't just development, it's investment in the neighborhood's future." The lead commissioner nodded slowly. "This is impressive work, Mrs. Cross. You've addressed every concern we raised." After the meeting, Patricia Morrison pulled her aside. "That was masterful. You've brought in more business this year than any partner in the firm's history." "Just doing my job," Zara said with a slight smile. "Your job is making this firm legendary." Patricia paused. "Have you thought about what I mentioned, about starting your own practice?" Zara had thought about it. A lot. The idea of building something entirely her own was tempting. "I'm considering it," she admitted. "Well, consider this. If you do start your own firm, Morrison Hayes would like to be your first client. Strategic partnership." Patricia smiled. "Think about it." That evening, Zara found Julian in his study, reviewing contracts. He looked up when she entered, his expression softening. "How did the presentation go?" "We got approval. Full project moves forward." He stood and crossed to her, pulling her into his arms. "Of course you did. You're brilliant." She settled against his chest, breathing in his familiar scent. Over the past year, this had become home. Not the penthouse, not the luxury, but this. The comfort of his presence. The certainty of his support. "Patricia suggested I start my own firm," she said. Julian pulled back slightly to look at her. "What do you think?" "I think it's terrifying and exciting and probably exactly what I should do." "Then you should do it," he smiled. "You know I'll support whatever you decide, though I'd be lying if I said I wasn't hopping to be your first major client." She laughed. "You just want to keep me close." "Always." His expression grew serious. "Zara, I need to tell you something." Her heart skipped. "What is it?" "I'm stepping back from the gray areas of the business. The creative logistics, the questionable imports, all of it. Cross Enterprises is going fully legitimate." She stared at him. "Why?" "Because you deserve a husband you don't have to make excuses for. Because I want to build something that lasts, something clean." He took her hands. "Because I love you, and I want our life together to be something we're both proud of." Tears pricked her eyes. "You love me." "I've loved you since you walked into my room in a champagne-colored dress with fire in your eyes and refused to be a victim." He cupped her face. "I love your intelligence, your strength, your unwillingness to compromise who you are for anyone. I love you, Zara, completely." "I love you too," she whispered. "I didn't expect to, didn't plan for it, but somewhere between revenge and partnership, I fell in love with you." He kissed her, deep and slow and full of promise. When they broke apart, she was smiling. "So what now?" "Now we build something real, a legitimate business empire, your law firm, a life together that's ours, not defined by revenge or the past." He smiled. "Maybe even a family if you want that." "I want that," she said softly. "All of it." "Then that's what we'll have." Later that night, as they lay in bed with Manhattan glittering outside the windows, Zara reflected on the journey that had brought her here. A year ago, she'd been heartbroken and betrayed, drugged and lost. She'd stumbled into the wrong room and found a stranger who offered her revenge. But what she'd gained was so much more than vengeance. She'd gained herself, the strength to walk away from someone who didn't value her, the courage to take risks and build something new. The wisdom to recognize that sometimes the wrong room leads you exactly where you need to be. And she'd gained love, real love, the kind built on honesty and respect and true partnership. "What are you thinking about?" Julian asked, his arm wrapped around her waist. "How grateful I am that my keycard opened the wrong door." He laughed softly. "Best malfunction in security system history." "You still don't know how it happened." "No, and at this point I don't care. Whether it was fate or coincidence or someone's elaborate plan, it brought you to me. That's all that matters." She turned in his arms to face him. "You know what Marcus said to the press last month?" "What?" "That I was the biggest mistake of his life. That he dodged a bullet when I left him at the altar." Julian's jaw tightened. "He's an idiot." "He is, but he's also right." She smiled. "I was a mistake for him because I was never meant to be his. I was always meant to be yours." "Damn right you were." He kissed her forehead. "And I'm never letting you go." "Good, because I'm not going anywhere." And she wasn't. Not anymore. She'd walked into the wrong room and found her right place. She'd sought revenge and found redemption. She'd been treated as a transaction and become a partner. She'd been underestimated, overlooked, and betrayed. But she'd risen from it stronger, fiercer, and more certain of who she was. And she'd done it all while wearing red. 2 years later, the courtroom was packed. Media filled the gallery. This was the trial everyone had been following. Wellington v. Cross, Marcus's final desperate attempt to reclaim something from the wreckage of his life. Zara stood at the plaintiff's table, not as a defendant, but as opposing counsel. She'd started her own firm a year ago, and this was her highest-profile case. Marcus sat across the aisle, his expensive lawyers flanking him. He'd returned from Europe to file a lawsuit claiming Julian had stolen his fiancé through coercion and fraud. He wanted financial damages, public vindication. Zara adjusted her burgundy suit jacket and stood to give her opening statement. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," she began, her voice clear and strong. "This case is about a man who cannot accept the consequences of his own actions. A man who views women as transactions, marriages as business deals, and love as a commodity to be won or lost." She walked toward the jury box. "The plaintiff wants you to believe he's a victim, that my client, Julian Cross, stole me away through some elaborate scheme. But the truth is much simpler. I heard the plaintiff describe me as just business. I discovered his plan to marry me for my connections and divorce me within a year. And I made a choice, not because I was coerced, but because I refused to be anyone's transaction." Over the next 3 weeks, Zara systematically dismantled Marcus's case. She presented evidence of his prenup scheme, played recordings of his conversations with his groomsmen, called witnesses who testified to his character. Ellen Wellington took the stand and described her son's pattern of using women for professional gain. When it came time for cross-examination, Zara stood face to face with Marcus for the first time since the wedding. "Mr. Wellington," she said calmly, "did you or did you not refer to me as just business the night before our wedding?" Marcus shifted in his seat. "That was taken out of context." "What context makes referring to your fiancé as a business transaction acceptable?" Silence. "Did you or did you not structure a prenuptial agreement designed to leave me with nothing if we divorced within the first year?" "Prenups are standard." "Answer the question, yes or no." "Yes, but..." No further questions. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous, in favor of the defendant. Marcus Wellington's case was dismissed. He was ordered to pay court costs. As Zara packed her briefcase, Marcus approached her table. "Satisfied?" he asked bitterly. She looked up at him calmly. "This was never about satisfaction, Marcus. This was about justice. You tried to use me, you tried to destroy me, and you failed. That's not my victory, that's just consequences." "You really love him, my bastard brother." "I really do. He's everything you pretended to be. Honest, loyal, respectful," she smiled. "And he sees me as a partner, not a transaction." Marcus looked like he wanted to say more, but his lawyers pulled him away. Julian was waiting in the hallway, and when Zara emerged from the courtroom, he swept her into his arms. "You were magnificent," he said. "I was just telling the truth. You destroyed him with the truth. Even better." They walked out of the courthouse together, hand in hand. Media swarmed, but they ignored the questions and cameras. That evening, back at the penthouse, they celebrated with dinner on the terrace. The same view, the same sunset, but everything had changed. "So," Julian said, raising his glass, "what's next for the brilliant attorney who just won the trial of the year?" "Actually," Zara set down her fork, "I have something to tell you." His expression shifted to concern. "What is it?" She took his hand and placed it on her stomach. "We're pregnant." Julian's eyes went wide. For a moment, he couldn't speak. Then his face broke into the most genuine smile she'd ever seen. "We're having a baby." "We're having a baby," she smiled through sudden tears. "I found out yesterday. I wanted to wait until after the trial to tell you." He pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was the most precious thing in the world. "I love you," he whispered. "So much, both of you." "We love you too." They stayed like that as the sun set over Manhattan, holding each other and dreaming about the future. A future they'd built together from the ashes of betrayal and revenge. Zara thought about the woman she'd been 2 years ago. Heartbroken, drugged, stumbling into a stranger's room with her world falling apart. That woman would never have believed she'd end up here. Successful beyond her dreams, married to a man who truly loved her, carrying a child who would grow up knowing they were wanted and cherished. Life was strange like that. Sometimes the wrong room was exactly the right place. Sometimes revenge transformed into redemption. Sometimes the person you met at your lowest point lifted you to heights you never imagined. "Thank you," she whispered against Julian's chest. "For what?" "For catching me when I fell, for being honest when everyone else was lying, for choosing me every day." She looked up at him. "For proving that I was never the problem. I was always enough. I just needed someone who could see it." "You were always more than enough." He kissed her forehead. "You were everything, you still are." "We're going to be okay, aren't we?" "We're going to be better than okay," Julian smiled. "We're going to be legendary." And as the stars began to appear over Manhattan, Zara knew he was right. They'd taken a mistake, a malfunction, a moment of chaos and pain, and turned it into something beautiful. They'd built an empire of trust, a partnership of equals, a love that was real. And that was the best revenge of all. So that's the story of how Zara turned her worst night into her greatest transformation. From a heartbroken bride-to-be to a powerhouse attorney and partner. From being someone's transaction to becoming someone's everything. All because she refused to accept less than she deserved. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me your favorite moment. Was it the wedding confrontation? The courtroom victory? The love story that developed? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next story. We bring you drama, romance, and powerful narratives every single week. And if you know someone who needs to hear this story, someone going through betrayal, someone who needs to know that walking away can lead to something better, someone who needs to remember their worth, share this video with them. Remember, sometimes the wrong door leads to the right destination. Sometimes revenge is just the beginning of your real story. And sometimes the person who seems dangerous is actually the one who'll keep you safest. Until next time, stay strong, know your worth, and never settle for being someone's backup plan when you deserve to be their priority.